Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Hey, you are in the right place if you came to listen about subscriptions done right. I am Deb Summers from Thales, and I just want you to imagine for a minute, if you were on an airplane right now, I would be that person that would come when you push the button, you know, that one above your seat if you need anything. So I am here to make sure you are comfortable and that you just have a great experience today during the webinar. Of course, I can't bring you like peanuts and a drink or anything, but I could help you with anything else. And the way that you can communicate with me or ask a question during the webinar is open up the questions section to the right of the screen. There's a little twisty arrow there. Type in your question and I'll do my very best to make sure you get a response sometime during the hour. We do have a large audience today, so if there are just too many questions, I will make sure that our presenters follow up by email, and maybe I'll make them send you a batch of holiday cookies or something for the delay. That'd be a good deal, right? So hey, I get asked this a lot on all the webinars, and it's where can I get the slides? And if you look to the right of your screen, you should be able to see a handouts area. Again, you can click the little twisty arrow and you should be able to download the charts there, okay? And then we also get asked a lot about the recording, and yes, we will send the recording out to all registrants within a week's time. Okay, so is everybody ready and caffeinated? I'm ready to go. So let's look at our agenda here. Let's see, get this to move. All right, we'll do some introductions. We'll talk about the transition to subscription is now, the common challenges with that transition. We'll talk about the paths to a perfect state, and then we should have plenty of time for any questions that didn't get answered in the chat area. And hey, you guys are really in for a treat today. We are featuring a great partnership on this webinar, maybe much like wine and cheese or the partnership of Santa and Mrs. Claus, right? They are better together, and that's how our customers describe the Thales Zuora partnership. So today we would like to welcome Petra Ligthart from Zuora and Julie Donnell from Thales. And Petra is first up. Her expertise, as you can see there on the screen, is helping customers understand how the Zuora Order to Revenue suite of solutions can effectively launch and manage subscription business models. You guys are going to love Petra's beautiful accent. She's originally from the Netherlands. So Petra, welcome. They're a rowdy bunch, but I'm going to turn them over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you today. And as you can see, I'm working very closely with Julie on this webinar. We had a lot of fun preparing the webinar. I also put a fun fact in my bio there that I'm, yeah, as Deb mentioned, my accent is from the Netherlands. There's a lot of people that from the Netherlands. I love sailing. We grew up nearly on the water, and I live since 1999 in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I love sailing there, and we'll take advantage of that in pretty much every weekend. So I'm very happy to be with you here, and I will hand it over to Julie.
And hi, I'm excited about being here today as well. I'm coming at you from the East Coast, so my accent is slightly different here in Pennsylvania and live from Happy Valley.
Thank you, Julie. So let's jump in. So I would like to start with some stats from the Subscription Economy Index, and the report is only from 2 months ago. And you can really see that subscription businesses grew revenues about 6 times faster than the S&P 500. And this is measured, by the way, over the last 8 years. And on top of that, you know, 2020 has really taught us that companies with a subscription-based business model are weathering that COVID storm very nicely, and they are very resilient. And as I mentioned, I'm a sailor, so I love the analogies with weather and storms and wind. And I want to make the analogy here, because I mentioned the COVID storm, that when you are, as a sailor, you are in a storm or you have severe headwinds and you need to go to some place, you need to be very smart about it. You need to trim your sails, change the course, take a look at the current, and a lot of those things. And then you will get there eventually, maybe a little slower than you want, but you will get there. And that is similar as here, in what happened in 2020, the businesses, the subscription businesses, they got there. They really did a lot of effort to make it agile and help their customers through the COVID things and things like that. So those companies, you know, and we will come back on it later, what are those companies doing really well? Those companies are really agile. All those companies that are weathering the COVID storm are very agile. They are able to launch very quickly new revenue streams. They're able to adjust them, to change them. They also have the automation capabilities to adapt to that increasingly digital world. And what very important is they use insight to manage their subscription business. And again, we will come back on those agility, automation, and insights throughout the presentation. And then let's go to the next slide. So let's look at some of the projections for the subscription economy, because that's also important, of course. How does the future look like? And of course, we cannot predict the future, but we can do an estimated forecast about it. And companies are shifting to pretty much everything as a service and towards more service-oriented business models. And a report from IDC, and that you can see that on the left-hand side, shows that on-prem companies are shrinking. So that's the on-prem software, and you can see that on in the middle of it, that the SaaS projected software, and that's a report from Gartner, is expected to grow with 38% by 2022. So that is a significant increase. And then on IDC projects that SaaS revenue is going to will account for over half of the revenue from all software vendors by 2024. So these stats are really telling what the prognosis and what the future, how we think about the future. Let's go to the next slide, and I'll talk a little bit more about subscription economy in the different sectors. And we see that the subscription economy is really in every sector right now. I'm not going to address all of them here on the page, but you can see a few industries where we see significant growth of our subscription models. And let's look at, for instance, take a few. I will go into a little bit more detail. So take the technology firms, and we take here the hardware companies. And all the hardware companies that are moving to subscription, there is typically a software involved. And we're talking here about computer hardware, networking equipment, consumer electronics, or even, you know, the semiconductor industry. So the focus is really on the digital aspects of their product. Hardware is the enabler for that. And then the automobile industry, we're talking here about connected vehicles, and that could be even specialty vehicles or regular cars, connected cars, but think also about, for instance, in-dash entertainment, connected fueling. There's a lot of applications that we are seeing these days. The media sector saw their advertising revenues declining, but the pandemic really actually accelerated the subscription revenues for digital print, and they are very much growing. If you look at the medical sector, and here we're talking about medtech, medical devices, capital equipment, such as MRIs, CAT scanners, they always deliver their services as uptime as a service. But it could also be, for instance, consumer consumables in the med sector, disposable things in your home. And then we have the financial and the government that are really also seeing an uptick in the subscription models. So let's go to the next slide. So now you're wondering, so I explained a little bit about, you know, the differences in growth between S&P 500 companies, subscription models, talked about subscription models in the different industries. So now you're wondering, what's the trick to it? What makes companies a winner in the subscription economy. And there are two items that I want to highlight that we have been seeing a lot. And this is from the Subscribed Institute, that when companies offer the possibility to their subscribers to easily change their subscription, either upgrade, downgrade, pause, resume, those companies are growing much faster than companies who are not doing that. So they provide that flexibility. And also what we see, and that we have done research in our own customer base for Zuora, is if customers are using usage pricing, usage billing, they grow about 30% faster than companies who are not doing that. So that is something you really need to keep in mind. And then we go to the next slide. And Julie, yeah. I know that you have some interesting information about this, about the product life cycle. So why don't you take it away?
Absolutely, thank you. And so, you know, we've been talking a lot about transforming and moving to subscription, but part of that transformation process is also thinking about where you're coming from. And so most customers that we're working with are transforming business models for both hardware and software products. And so if you think about the perpetual product life cycle, you know, at one time, this was the way that we sold hardware and software products. Very simple, straightforward, one-time approach where you had a product, you conducted a sales transaction, and your customer had ownership of that product forever and ever. But that's just not the case nowadays. And so it takes a little bit more thoughtful consideration. And so if you think about the subscription product life cycle, you know, you have a product, the consumer purchases the subscription, and there's a lot of care and nurturing needed at that renewal cycle in order to retain that customer forever and a day. And so, you know, just a few examples of customers and trends that we're seeing. One customer is selling scanning equipment to hospitals, and you know, initially that customer offered one price for a combination of a device and software, and now they want to sell the equipment and also then sell the subscription of the software on an ongoing basis. So rethinking how you're selling today and how you might move forward. Another customer selling network devices, those devices might have a lifespan of 3 to 5 years. And so, you know, originally they would just have one price for the hardware device that included the software. And now they're seeing opportunities to monetize the software beyond that initial hardware device purchase. So these are all ways that customers are thinking about how they're selling today and how they can transform their business model moving forward. So regardless of what you're selling, I think the real takeaway is that companies offering subscriptions really need to be thinking about how they can provide continuous value in order to retain their customers. But let's not admit that the challenge of moving to subscription is easy, and especially if the approach to support subscriptions is disjointed. So if you think about it, often companies that are in this growth mode are acquiring other businesses, and that's requiring them to merge core systems and business processes together. And so these fragmented infrastructures really lead to a suboptimal subscriber experience, often leaving that customer confused about what the process is to acquire your product, use the product, and/or renew the products. And so this type of disjointed solution can really put your revenue at risk.
Yeah, and that's also what we are seeing, Julie. And we kind of group that together in what are 3 common challenges. And we always think about the notion automation, agility, and insights. And what does it mean? So what 3 common challenges are we, you know, do we see, and how do we need to overcome that as a company? So the first challenge is, as Julie already mentioned, you know, a lot of times those systems that you're dealing with are disjointed or are not geared up for subscription businesses. So you really have to not only think about it from a business perspective, but you also really need to think about it kind of from an infrastructure perspective. And very important is that you really automate your end-to-end processes. And certainly when you want to grow, you want to expand internationally, you really, everything needs to be supporting those new business models, those subscription business models. And then I have slides for each one of those, by the way. So I will go into a little bit more detail in a little bit. So the second one here in the middle of the page is the agility. So companies sometimes take months to operationalize pricing and packaging. Hard coding is required to set up pricing, and they cannot be agile. Can you remember that I mentioned what are the winners in the subscription economy? That companies that are can adapt very quickly, can offer their subscribers the possibility to change their subscription often. You need to be agile for that. And then on the third one, on the right-hand side, is the insights. To launch a subscription model, and also you run potentially your other business models. It's different. The subscription model is different, and you really need the insights to make the right predictions for the future, to be able to react quickly, to get all the right subscription metrics out of the system, so that you can see the health of your business during the whole lifetime of a subscription life cycle. So on the next slide, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the few of those ones. And I mentioned it already, from automation perspective, if you launch a subscription business and you need to set up your pricing and packaging, first of all, you need to be able to test and iterate that pricing, because it's not like a one-time sale. It's really more involved. So for subscription businesses, you have recurring charges. You can charge on a usage-based level or advanced usage. You want to apply promos, discounts. You need to make sure that you set up all your pricing rules and configure your billing frequency. Do you want to bill once a month? Do you want to bill after usage, etc.? So you need to be able to set that up for each subscription. You can see how quickly it becomes a mess if you don't do that right. You see all the lines and stuff like that. And if you then want to expand internationally, then you really need to make sure that you have all the localization in place. You need to have your your languages, your currencies, but also the tax engines and the different payment providers where you need to interface with or integrate with. And most likely, when you are expanding internationally or grow in general, doesn't have to be international, then you probably want to expand also your channels that you need in order to give that subscriber or your customer the ultimate experience, because that's where it's all about, right? You want to deliver the best subscriber experience possible. And that goes hand in hand with agility. And I know Julie has some good information about the agility. So let's go there.
So I think that, the second problem that we see is around agility. So if we can move to the next slide, you can see that your response to market demands, it really includes having an agile subscriber experience. And as a customer, there's really 3 simple actions that they're considering when they're buying your product. They want to know how to subscribe to the product, how to use it, and how to renew it. And yes, that might sound overly simple, but then, you can start thinking about what it takes on your side to actually supply this type of experience to the customer. So on the subscribe side, you have to think about how to handle things like how was the order requested, and are the terms clear? When will you receive the payment? Was it successful? Does the customer have an entitlement created so that they're only using what they're entitled to use? And how's the software delivered to the customer, and how do you know if it's activated? And when will revenue be recognized? So those are just some of the things that you have to think about in that subscribe step. So thinking of it as one step, obviously, I'm sure everyone on the call is thinking of all the processes and things that are related to that one step behind the scenes. Then thinking from the use perspective, the customer simply wants to be able to use the product that you're selling. But you want to make sure that they're only using what they're entitled to, so that you're being compensated fairly for your product. You also want to be able to promote upgrades and features and manage the versions of the software that they're using, as well as be able to push new releases mainstream, so that customers are continuing to receive value from the software that you're selling. Also being able to understand how the software is being used, when the software is being used, and to just have a really full picture of the consumption of your product. Then thinking last about that renewal stage, when it's time for whatever term was purchased to be renewed, there should be an auto renew component to that, where a customer can easily renew or just set it and forget it, be able to cancel it, or be able to adjust their subscription. Maybe they want to extend it, or offer purchase more of it. And so being able to easily fulfill their payment, update their entitlement again, so that you're being compensated fairly for what the customer is using, and recognize that revenue. And so being agile to support a very streamlined subscriber experience. It might sound simple on the front end, but knowing what all has to happen behind the scenes and organizing your infrastructure appropriately is key for this problem. So I think next we're going to take a look at the final issue, which is around insights.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an important one, Julie, because that is the lifeline of a business who is launching a subscription business, because it's definitely different than your traditional business models. And why do you need those insights? Well, you want to discover growth opportunities, because with subscriptions there are there's trend. If you don't keep track on trends, you don't know where your churn is. For instance, you really want to keep a close eye on your churn, on your retention, and how to act on it. So you need the business analytics to be able to make quick decisions. In subscription businesses, net dollar retention is one of the most important metrics that you can think of. And I don't know if you have heard about it. And net dollar retention is measuring the health of your business. So it's really showing how long subscribers are staying with you. As I mentioned, the health of your business. And I heard a very nice analogy lately from someone who explained NDR. So let's take a bucket of water. The bucket is full, it's 100%, but then you have your churn, you get a hole in your bucket and the water is going out. And in order to make up for that, you need to get more water in the bucket. But if the hole is too big, if you have too much churn, you can't get the bucket full anymore, and you definitely have churn. So how we measure it is 100% means under 100% means churn, above 100% means growth. Very simple. So the bucket overflows, it's good news. The bucket is half empty, is bad news, it's churn. So I know it's not maybe a very accurate analogy, but I think it gives you the idea what net dollar retention is. So, and what we also see as difficulties is that a lot of companies are dependent on multiple data sources. So in order to get information out of it, and that has also to do with automation and the agility in a way, it can take days before you get the right results. So you really want a fast process. You want to have a streamlined reporting process, and you need dashboards to keep track on all that stuff, like the NDR. But in the subscription business, you have also other metrics like monthly recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue. There's so many, the retention, churn, you want to keep track on those ones. So that is definitely a very important item, that whole insights or the lack thereof. We see that very often as big problems within companies.
Yeah, we definitely see the same thing. And I think that moving to subscription can be very experimental for some customers. And so having the insights and being able to track your success and pivot in the subscription world, I think is really key.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we can talk a bit more about it also later in the presentation about how we can provide for that.
Right. So many people are probably wondering, how do I go from where I am today toward creating a path of subscription success? And so one of the main challenges, and the challenges that we've already spoken of, can be solved through transforming your infrastructure. And so your business is going to have a lot of difficulty scaling if you're using spreadsheets, legacy systems, custom code workarounds, especially, homegrown systems, things that are putting your business at risk. So thinking about how to take your legacy infrastructure and modernize it. So moving to the next slide. So here's an example of how you can move forward in establishing a flexible infrastructure to support subscriptions. And so if you think about your back office infrastructure as it exists today, most people commonly think of that infrastructure as having a CRM and an ERP. Those are usually two staples in the infrastructure. But where Zuora and Thales can fit in is to cover the other key elements to support subscriptions. And so on the Thales side, if you're looking on the right-hand side of the infrastructure, you can see where we fit in this life cycle is around entitlement management, license enforcement, and collecting monetization usage. So thinking of your single source for entitlement. So regardless of where a customer purchases your product, whether it's through a direct sale, whether it's through a sale through your channel partners, or whether it's through a cloud marketplace, one central place to know who's entitled to what, and to be able to have that visibility across all sales methods to see, which channels are maybe performing better for you. Also, having the ability to have a single SKU across on-premise and cloud offerings. So if you're thinking about transitioning your legacy customers to now subscription customers, it's important to have that flexibility in the back office. So those are just some of the ways you can see here that we're helping. And actually, if we could just go back to that slide for a minute, I also want to touch on the Zuora side. Petra, maybe you can help us there.
Yeah, definitely. So exactly as Julie mentioned, we provide the capabilities, the solutions for what's kind of in between your CRM and your ERP. So it is very important also that we can integrate with those ones very, very easily, and that is definitely the case. So if I talk from to the left side of the page, the Zuora side, so what we have is the order to revenue suite. So you can think about the automation that I mentioned earlier on. So you want to be able to automate your entire order to revenue suite, and you want to be able to integrate where necessary. And that's all supported, all the order to revenue suite solutions. And I'm talking here about CPQ, Collect, Zuora Billing, and Zuora Revenue Automation, and that's supported by the central platform, and the analytics is covering all of those. All the right metrics are collected from the different applications that I just mentioned. And what is standing out there? What are definitely differentiators that you need to be successful in the subscription economy? And One of the first one is the pricing and package needs to go quick. As you can remember, agility, you really need to be able to launch a new subscription models in a matter of minutes or matter of days. You don't want to hard code new pricing every time. So by the time that your new subscription model is live after 3 or 4 months, it's kind of outdated, or it doesn't work anymore. It's not applicable anymore. So very important is that you can price and package in minutes. Regarding quotes for the CPQ product, is really creating quotes smart and fast, and it means that you can create subscriptions, you can create renewals. It enforces product eligibility, and then it also moves, if company has both CPQ and billing, it automatically is converted into an order in the billing solution. So that is the same as you see here, the process, the subscription order effortless. We account for all subscription orders, including renewals, upgrades, downgrades, etc. Automated rating and billing, that's also kind of a no-brainer, I would say. If you in a successful subscription world, you need to have automated rating and billing. You need to be able to set up your billing schedules. You need to have you need to account for recurring usage-based billing. You need to be able to set up everything in that respect. Of course, if you have a solution like this, you need to be able to collect the payments. You need to maximize the collection. And what is very important there, because there's a lot of involuntary churn associated with collections. People that the credit card doesn't work, and then the subscription is canceled. So that is what we have is an automatic retry method, so that you're automatically retrying credit cards or other payment methods that were not successful the first time, and that really reduces involuntary churn in that respect. And in regard of the payments, to come back on that one, you need to be able to connect to payment gateways. I mean, that's how the world functions these days, and we have about connections with 35 plus payment gateways, so that from an agility perspective, you are able to plug in exactly to your needs. From a revenue automation perspective, we really also want to stress there the fact that if you are launching subscription businesses, but you're also still, you have for instance, your product sale, you need to be able to automate your revenue recognition for both of those revenue streams. So for your subscription and your non-subscription, and that is also what that product is doing. And then the insights, I think we talked about it already, about measuring the success, the health of your business using subscription metrics as NDR, MRR, ARR, using dashboards, trend analysis to look at, to predict the future and things like that. So this is kind of on a high level, what Zuora is offering in that respect.
Yeah, and hopefully, if you're looking at this infrastructure, you can think about your use cases and sort of where your CRM and your ERP and how your business processes all relate together. Things like Petra mentioned, a credit card payment could get denied, maybe in a renewal process, and then in that case, you would want your entitlement to be updated to reflect that the customer hadn't paid, so they're not getting free product. And so you can kind of see how all of these pieces fit together, and maybe could help you.
Yeah, and that definitely makes the whole process a lot more efficient. Because to come back on that, that's a very great example with the involuntary churn. I mean, if you can capture that, or you can prevent that, then it's something that it's an easy fix, and it goes a very long way. So Yeah, so I think want to kind of summarize part of the how we can help solve these challenges, and we want to group those ones in the three buckets again: the automation, the agility, and the insight. So let me start on the left hand side, and then we'll work our way towards the right. And I know it's a lot of text, it's a lot of bullets, it's something you have already heard today in the webinar, but kind of a short recap. So from an automation, always think about end-to-end. Think about end-to-end processes in order to kind of maximize the benefits of it. So automate all your process, sales, payment, fulfillment, your billing processes to improve ultimately the efficiency. So with other words, lay the groundwork to scale your subscription business with the order to revenue, in order to also be able to expand internationally, to grow across the board. Centralize your visibility and compliance. Compliance is something we should not forget about, because in this day and age, we have to be compliant with region. Sorry about this. Take a sip of water. Compliance is across the board, across continents. Everything what we're doing is compliance associated. And I mentioned it already before. Integration into CRM, ERPs, integration in global payment gateways, tax engines. It's so important to really streamline the entire process and really give you the benefit that you need. And automation is laying the groundwork for the agility, because without automation you cannot be agile. And the agility, you're able to respond to the market demands. And Julie.
Yeah, and so you do want to be able to respond to those market demands and have some element of experimentation as you're growing your subscription business. So thinking about your ability to speed to market new offerings, maybe new business models, or try different business models. Offering a single SKU across both perpetual and subscription offerings really would give you the ability to have that experimentation and pivot without a lot of fuss on the back end. And then providing a consistent subscriber experience. So if you do have customers on legacy products, their transition to subscriptions is graceful and acceptable and modern. And so also transitioning customers just to new flexible business models, all those things can help you to be agile in how you're responding to market demands.
Yeah, and it all fits in, it all boils down, also have the right insights. And we mentioned it already. I mentioned a few of the metrics already that are very important. Make sure that you can track that. Make sure that because it's very important. If you have churn in a certain area and you don't notice it, if a small problem can mostly be fixed, but when it's a large problem and you're too late, it's hard to fix it. And also that those insights really give you the possibility to look for those growth opportunities. There are trend analysis that you can use in order to help you launching maybe new subscription models or change subscription models. Be very quick about it. And definitely the last bullet point, understand renewal trends, trial conversion, and product adoption, because that's very important. If you launch a subscription model and it's not adopted, that you want to act fast. Either you can change it, or you say, hey, we're not continuing it with anymore. So that's where the insights supports all the components that you have seen here. Yeah, and then on the next slide, maybe you can remember in the beginning that I mentioned, there are companies who are weathering the COVID storm very nicely. And I made the analogy to sailing, and I want to highlight a few of those customers here who has been very good in weathering that COVID storm. And they were able to, let's say, to stay with the analogy, to adjust the sails, to change course, and to adapt very easily to those unpredictable market conditions. And those companies really were very successful during COVID and were really very resilient. And I'm not going through all of them. I just wanted to kind of show a few of those ones. And I know from the Thales side, you have also a few of those customers. Julie, why don't you walk through those ones? Mm-hmm.
Right. And so on the next slide, you can see here's a set of Thales customers that we've been helping to transition towards subscription growth. So really helping them focus on hitting their goals to move to modern business models and have that single source of truth for entitlements. Very important to all these customers to be able to have that natural transition from perpetual products to subscription products and have a fast, nimble time to market when experimenting with new models. Also, I guess one of the last things I'm thinking when I look at this customer list is optimizing their business operations, having these scalable processes that are driven based on data and insight. And so, making sure that they're understanding their customer use and then using that intelligence to drive future decision making around subscriptions. So moving on, I think we're at a point now that we'd like to introduce some questions.
Yeah, and I'm just going to read a couple here. So the first one is, how do you manage entitlements for products? Hold on, I have to expand the window here so I can see the whole thing. I'm sorry, Julie. Okay, how do you manage entitlements for products which aren't connected to a network?
That's a very good question. So we'd have to obviously understand the use case in more detail. We'd be happy to set up a call to talk about that. But we're able to manage entitlements for both connected and disconnected environments. And so the power in that is so that you can see, all of your entitlement and usage across both connected, disconnected environments. And then any decisions that you make around those business models moving forward can be based on that entire audience.
Okay, great. And the next one is, do Zuora and Thales already have an enterprise customer with their solutions integrated? Can you provide a quick glimpse into how that looks like, and also how much effort did it take from the customer to get your two solutions integrated? So kind of three questions in one there.
Right. So Petra and I will try to pull that question apart a little bit. So as far as giving you a glimpse into customers, we would be happy to schedule time to talk through your particular industry and use cases and try to find examples that would be fitting, because one of the things that we find when we're looking at time to market to integrate all of the solutions is it really comes down to three things: process, time, and all of your requirements. And so it really is a matter of priority. I think that we can bring some things to market quicker than others. And so we would really have to look at the use cases to see what it would take to implement. That one's a kind of a hard one to answer for sure.
Mm-hmm. Petra, any thoughts on that one before we go to the next one?
No, I'm just concur completely what Julie is mentioning. Use cases are very important for us to understand the context, the industry, what exactly, how integrated does it need to be, things like that. So yeah, I agree with Julie here.
Okay, and then here's a good one. We are a company that sells hardware and software, and typically our customers submit one PO with both product types on one order. And then in parentheses, they put one opportunity in the CRM, one order in the ERP. Do the related workflows or reports rely on software being its own standalone opportunity in the CRM, ERP, or does it work with orders that contain multiple product types, such as hardware, software, service, etc.?
We need to understand a little bit more about the use case in the sense this. I mentioned that we are integrating with all the ERPs and the CRMs. If I understand the question is if an opportunity in a CRM will flow into our solution. I find it hard to address this question without having the details, to be honest. I don't know, Julie, maybe if you have a better answer than I have.
I do think it does make it hard without understanding the use case. But I guess one sort of thought that I have on it is, regardless of what's happening on the PO with the order types, it's really going to depend on what the business process is to accept that order type and push it into your systems. And so, thinking beyond the PO, we would want to look at things like, how your product catalog is structured, and then, the insights or data that we're tracking and involving the products. So obviously we'd be happy to dig into more of the details on that and help you with that use case.
Mm-hmm. And guys, what would you say is the single most important piece of advice that you would give a customer that's wanting to move to subscription offerings?
I would say from my side, I would say don't be afraid, because I know it seems like a big step, and certainly when you are used to a traditional model, so it could seem kind of daunting to embark on that new road. And don't inform yourself very much. Go out, look out what's there, see what other companies are doing, and also when you start actually, you're going to set it up, really test and iterate. Make sure that you can, if you start a subscription business, set it up in a certain way that for the first 1 or 2 months, test it, see, does it work? Does it work operationally? Does it give you the success that it's need? Well, most of all, don't be afraid, but also make sure that you test the process very carefully.
Right, and I definitely agree with that, Petra. And I would say, my piece of advice would be to create a phased approach or a phased plan to mitigate risk, especially when you're thinking of converting, large revenue streams. So really thinking about how you could break that apart, whether it's broken down by use case or customer segment or products. Those are some of the ways that I've seen customers maybe phase their approach. So taking those approaches and making sure that you not only iterate, but that you're able to measure some level of success so that you can track how you're doing and that you can quickly pivot. So like Petra said, it's very daunting. However, if you have a phased approach to it, it really should just be one step at a time, measuring along the way and using the data to inform your path forward.
Yeah, and a lot of it boils down also to use case. I know a lot of the questions we would want to know a little bit more context around it, because there's so many different use cases. And if you can remember the slide that I showed about the different industries, every subscription model is different. There is not always one size fits all, and that needs to be also taken into account. And we're happy, by the way, to work with you on those use cases and give you advice and help you further. And I think Julie, our email addresses are on the next slide, so that maybe don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask for help and ask for advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And ladies, what's the typical time frame for moving to subscription offerings?
So I think the time frame can be really based on what you're trying to do, what you're trying to bring to market, whether it's one product, two products, how many use cases, how many markets. So all those things would need to be taken into consideration. But again, if you have a phased approach, you should be able to offer some type of products to market very quickly. Petra, I know we've both, in speaking, we've both had customers that we've helped during this COVID period get new models to market very fast.
Yeah,
so I don't...
exactly. And then that's the agility factor. And, you know, COVID is, of course, it's a time hopefully that will go away very soon, that's for sure. But it also was an exception, you know, it was demanding fast changes in the market, and companies who could do that were indeed very resilient. So I would think, to come back on the question, you need to, you can do also some quick wins. Think about start small, like Julie mentioned, do a phased approach, iterate and test. And those, if you start small, you can do that relatively quickly. If that's a month or 3 months, I don't know, it depends on the use case. But start small, iterate a lot of times, look at the results, look at the insights, and then determine based on those results your path forward.
Okay, and we have plenty of time for more questions. That was all that had come through. Are there any others? Don't be shy, get chatty. That might be it, ladies. So I want to thank you just for a great job. This was great information today. I want to thank everybody for attending. We know you all are extremely busy, so thank you for taking the time. And as I mentioned before, you can download the charts in the handout section to the right-hand side of your screen. We'll also send out the recording within a week. And this concludes our webinar today. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.